The NFL Combine. Some people put too much stock into it, others not so much. There's going to be a bunch of players testing over the next week, but here are 10 players I want to keep an eye on.
Jets, Jets, Jets!
Welcome to Jets Talk. My name is Ryan. I'll be your pilot. If you're new here, hit that subscribe button. If you've been here before, welcome back. I love having you here. Boys and girls, I'm very excited to talk about the NFL Combine. Every year I get excited for this time of year because we're looking at all the prospects. There's so much hope. Not everyone knows who these players are just yet, but once you see all the testing, you see the interviews and all the stuff that goes on over the course of this next week, that's when people start skyrocketing up boards. I know personally this is when I fell in love with Sauce Gardner. So I'm looking forward to try and find some of these other little gems and polished off diamonds maybe that we could find in the rough here. But these are some guys that I think are really impactful, going to be top-end players in the NFL, and I think could have a major impact on the way this draft sort of falls. So I want to take a look at it. Now, a lot of people put a ton of stock in the NFL Combine, and a lot of people just say, it's just the underwear Olympics. We don't really care about it. Well, I agree with both those sides of thinking because I think you should not take the Combine as the be-all, end-all. My favorite parts about the Combine are the interview process, or is the interview process. I love hearing from these players, how they respond to certain questions. And then the on-the-field stuff, as far as testing goes, there's certain levels of metric you want to hit, like a certain 40-yard dash time or a certain 10-yard split time that I think trends towards the elite players in the NFL. And if you don't hit certain thresholds, there's going to be some questions about you. And some of these players have some questions about them, but they also have some weird things that maybe popped up throughout their college careers. Or they're top guys that are trying to maintain their top dog status. So, I don't know. Lots of things to go into. The first player I want to start off with, this one, we're starting this with a boom, because this has a major potential impact on the entire draft. That is Anthony Richardson, the quarterback out of Florida. Richardson is almost 22 years old. He's 6'4", 232 pounds. He's projected to be a first-round prospect in this year's draft. By and large, he's considered the fourth quarterback prospect behind the likes of Bryce Young, CJ Stroud, and Will Levis. But this player is a freak athlete, and he's doing all the testing at the Combine. There's no one in this draft that has more to gain, in my opinion, than Anthony Richardson. This kid has so much freak potential. He's got 4.4 speed. He could throw the ball 75 yards, and he's got 10% body fat. This guy is he's like DK Metcalf as a quarterback. That's the type of person I'm comparing this guy to. But the stats aren't always there. The quarterbacking play at Florida, this guy's a project. This is similar to the project that maybe Josh Allen was at the time coming out of Wyoming, although I would say Josh was probably a better passer, where maybe Richardson is the more dominant runner. And when you're looking at where the NFL is kind of trending right now, you see the likes of guys like Jalen Hurts, really outshining everyone. Richardson has the type of athletic profile that could be top 5 player in the NFL, but does not have the college production to back it up. So watching this guy amongst his peers, how does he stand out amongst everyone else? If he winds up winning these underwear Olympics and his metrics go through the roof, people are going to start talking about this guy inside the top 10. I'm predicting he's probably going to land somewhere in the 7, 8, 9 range. That would be like the Raiders, the Falcons, or the Panthers would be my guess. Now, he is an elite runner, wowed people at the Manning Passing Academy, and he has struggles with his decision-making and mechanics. So like I said, the mechanic-y kind of things in him, the footwork, not all there just yet. So this is someone you're going to want to sit and learn for maybe 2 years. So maybe there's a situation where if you're Carolina, maybe you bring back Sam Darnold, you have this kid sit. Or maybe you have Desmond Ridder or someone like that in Atlanta, maybe take the first half of the snaps and then Richardson comes in. I mean, honestly, probably the best case scenario would be someone like Jimmy Garoppolo starting in Vegas, and then this kid gets to sit for 2 years, really iron out everything, and turn him into the pocket passer while also being able to utilize those legs. Either way, this kid going ahead of the Jets at number 13 is going to be a big thing for us because it's going to push some other good players down the list. Because for me, as a Jet fan, I don't particularly want to go with a quarterback here. So the more quarterbacks that go ahead of us, the better here. And I think this guy has a really good shot at sneaking in above the New York Jets. The next person I want to look at, I'm looking wide receiver here. And this one's Quentin Johnson, the wide receiver out of TCU. He's 21 and a half years old, 6'4", 215 pounds. He's projected to be a first round pick in this year's draft. He's more than likely going to run a 4.4 40, have about a 42-inch vertical, and an 11-foot broad jump. This guy provides an athletic profile at wide receiver that the rest of the class doesn't quite seem to have. Now, he did run a limited route tree at TCU. That's going to be something that maybe the scouts are going to put him through a little bit more testing on. How does he move, getting in and out of his breaks, things of that nature. And for his size, he's a little underwhelming as a blocker. You'd think someone of that size, you'd want them to impose their will on smaller cornerbacks or whatnot. So maybe not as physical as you'd otherwise would have liked. For the New York Jets, as far as me looking at this particular player, I want someone that provides an athletic profile that doesn't already exist on the roster. This past year, we had a lot of guys like Braxton Berrios, Elijah Moore kind of logjam at slot. Then you had, Denzel Mims and Corey Davis kind of logjammed at receiver. And then you have Garrett Wilson. So in my mind, I'm thinking I want someone that does not match up with the same skill set that we already have on the roster. And Quentin Johnston is right up there on guys that I want to take a look at. The other receiver that I think people are going to talk about in the first round, specifically for the New York Jets, but this guy's going to be a popular name anyway. Jackson Smith-Njigba, the wide receiver out of Ohio State. He's 21 years old, 6'1", 200 pounds. He is projected to go middle of the first round, maybe towards the end of the first round. He was the top wide receiver for the Ohio State Buckeyes in 2021. That was when Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave were also on the team. This guy had more yardage than the two of them. And you might get him later than you got Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave. That's what's kind of weird, right? Like you have Garrett Wilson who goes number 10. I think Olave went, 11 or 12. So you're talking about three wide receivers right in a row going top maybe 15 in the NFL draft. He only played 3 games in 2023. He did have a hamstring injury all season. So I don't particularly like this, but this is an area where people are going to want to test him and see how he performs after having a majority of the year kind of off. As far as his play style, he's more of a possession wide receiver. I would say he's definitely similar, to a respect of like maybe a Corey Davis where you have like the bigger body size. He does not really have impressive speed. I think this is where it's really going to hurt him. He played every or most of his snaps from the slot. So you're looking at him maybe as a bigger body, like go get the first down kind of wide receiver, as opposed to like the fast guy that's going to beat you with his routes and everything. I don't know. I'm very pessimistic about Jackson Smith-Njigba, but I would like to see how he performs with his peers this week because I would love to add someone who Garrett Wilson played with in college in the event the Jets decide to go wide receiver, either in the in a trade down situation in the first round or maybe in the second round here. So someone to keep an eye on. Now, in that same type of vein, I want to talk about another weapon, and this isn't a position that I think a lot of Jet fans particularly want to go, but it's an exciting player, and that is Darnell Washington, the tight end out of Georgia. This guy is a monster. 21 and a half years old, 6'7", 270 pounds. This guy's going to impose his will on you. He's graded as a second-round prospect. He is an elite blocker and has never actually given up a pressure on the quarterback. So for someone with a very rough offensive line, the New York Jets may want to get a little bit of help from a 6'7" tight end. He has massive arms that allow him to play even bigger than he actually is. So I'm excited to see where his arms actually measure out, because if this kid is like, 8-foot wingspan or whatever, I don't know. Very excited to see how he tests. He's very slow, very average speed. He should be covered by linebackers at the next level. I don't think it's going to require any type of safety help that requires speed. So maybe you have some size, some size help. If you can flash a little bit of speed, get around, I don't know. This guy's just a big dude, like physical specimen. I don't particularly want to go with a tight end early in this draft. You have Conklin, you have Uzomah, you have Rucker, who you drafted last year. I would tend to trend maybe on the later rounds as far as where to look for at tight end. But if you wanted to take a big swing and you wanted someone who at least can provide like really good blocking, and you feel like you're going to move on from, your tight ends maybe next year. Because realistically, Uzomah and Conklin, I would think one of, if not both, may not be on the roster in 2024 with the way rosters turn over and whatnot. So maybe the Jets take a look at this kid. He's going to be a physical freak. The next player up I want to talk about is a very, very highly anticipated player for New York Jet fans. That would be center John Michael Schmitz out of Minnesota. Now, the New York Jets have been spoiled with center play for the majority of my lifetime. Kevin Mawai, Nick Mangold, then maybe like a 7 or 8 year stretch of awful. And now we're looking for the heir apparent to Connor McGovern. Apparently, during Connor McGovern's exit interview, he was not approached for a contract extension. So naturally, everyone's thinking top center in the draft. Where's he going to go? This guy's projected to be about a second-round pick. He's 23 years old, 6'3", 306 pounds. He has 2,495 snaps at center. He gave up 2 sacks in his 5 seasons. He is a true anchor in the run and pass game, and he is quick to get to the second level on screens. We saw him bulldozing over dudes at the Senior Bowl. So if this guy has another strong outing at the Combine, combined with the interview process, I think the New York Jets could definitely make this guy the selection at pick number 43 in the second round. I really like this. I think the Jets need to solve center in the worst way possible, and I'm kind of done with the whole veteran option route. Give me someone that I could plug in next to AVT. Hopefully Mekhi Becton comes back. Maybe you get a tackle in the first round. All of a sudden, you have a rock-solid young offensive line for the next decade. I love this. John Michael Schmitz. Hope you wind up in green and white. The next player I want to talk about is a tackle. May not be the highest on people's list, but he's a really interesting one. He's a right tackle, DeJuan Jones out of Ohio State, 21 and a half years old. He's 6'8", 375 pounds. This is another big dude like a Mekhi Becton. So imagine having those twin towers on either side of the formation. Monsters. These guys are like mountains. Second round grade, like I was saying. 2-year starter at Ohio State. He has allowed 11 quarterback hurries, 5 quarterback hits, and 3 sacks during his time at Ohio State. He has massive size, excels in the run game. When you have that kind of size, you are going to pancake people consistently. He left the Senior Bowl early due to an undisclosed injury. So I'm curious to see what was that injury, what questions are asked of him, what type of performance does he have at the Combine following that. Now, we saw guys like Bryce Young. He's not going to be throwing at the Combine. Maybe there's a situation where DeJuan Jones is only going to interview, and whatever injury he has may be better suited to show off at his pro day later on. Something to keep an eye on. But if you're going to pass on tackle maybe early in the first and you want to look maybe top of the second or in a trade down situation from the top of the middle of the first to like the 20s, this is someone you may want to consider here. At the top end of the draft, we're talking Peter Skoronski, offensive tackle out of Northwestern. Now, this guy could be one of, if not the best offensive lineman in this draft. I've seen him floated around between pick 7 to basically 13 where the Jets are. I think this is the type of player that Joe Douglas absolutely covets. Incredible versatility across the offensive line. 21 years old, 6'4", 315 pounds. A lot of people are projecting him as a top 10 grade. I would say him or Paris Johnson, one of those guys are going to wind up going to Tennessee at the latest at pick number, I think they're 11. So the Jets may or may not have an opportunity at this kid. But who knows? If you think this guy solves a bunch of potential offensive line headaches for you and you think you might be able to get him, maybe he's sliding a little bit, who knows? I would like to make this selection at 13. Like I said, versatile offensive lineman, has a very high IQ, fantastic technique. Arm length and wingspan are on the shorter side for a tackle for what you'd like. So there is some thought that maybe he transitions to guard. I think this is a situation where it could be similar to an AVT where he played left tackle in college, kicks into guard. AVT has been able to perform at the tackle position. So maybe there's a situation where you want AVT on the outside because he wants to be able to make the money of a tackle. And then maybe you slot Skoronski inside on the interior part of your offensive line, and you just kind of mix guys around that way. I want the best offensive line regardless of who plays where. Just get the 5 best guys out on the field. He does have the speed to handle offensive tackle, but it's definitely going to be a little bit more challenging because of those shorter arms. So this is going to be something that we'll look at maybe in some of the reps he does throughout the rest of this process here. But Skoronski is going to be a fan favorite for sure. He has so much versatility. I mean, that's kind of been the name of the game for the New York Jets. Flipping the side of the ball, let's talk about the defensive side here. I want to look at Brian Branch, the safety out of Alabama. He's 21 and a half years old, 6 feet tall, 193 pounds. He's projected to be a first-round pick in this year's draft. 2022 All-American by ESPN and CBS Sports. He clocked a 22.3 mile an hour speed on the GPS system. He can play strong safety, free safety, cornerback, and nickelback. He had an elite 2022, but gave up a 110.9 quarterback rating prior to this year. So really good stats this year, not so great prior, but this guy is an absolute missile. I think you can utilize him at any position in the backfield, and like Skoronski, provides an incredible amount of versatility. You have Jordan Whitehead right now, if you're the New York Jets, who's due 7.25, or could save you $7.25 million against the salary cap. In the event you wanted to move on from him, maybe you bring in someone else, like a Brian Branch here. Now, you're going to have to spend a first-round pick on him. I do not think he's going to make it out of the first round. But if there was a safety that you would look at to make a move on, this is someone I would strongly consider. And this is almost a situation where you're taking the best player available and not necessarily at a bigger need. Because I think we can all agree that the offensive line is first and foremost our most pressing need as far as Jet fans go. But if you had drafted for need last year, you'd end up with maybe a Kayvon Thibodeau instead of a Sauce Gardner. So I think you draft the best possible player that could be the best fit for your system and for your culture and for your team. And then, you kind of figure it out after that. Is this guy the best guy? I don't know. There's a lot of dudes that are going to be coming through here, and this is just one of them. Next up, I want to talk linebacker Trenton Simpson out of Clemson, 21, almost 22 years old, 6'3", 240 pounds. This guy's going to be a first-round grade. He's ranked somewhere in that mid-first round to mid-20s is kind of where I've seen him in mock drafts. 5-star recruit coming out of high school. I like hearing that because it provides you an idea of the expectations of this player prior to their time in college. And now based on his rankings, you can see how he has handled those expectations to this point. And now if he's a highly touted college player, there is some likelihood that he will at least continue to trend in the right direction and provide the work ethic necessary to maintain that level of standing caliber player of whatnot. 2022 Butkus Award semifinalist, can blitz off the edge and play middle linebacker. This guy likes being around the line of scrimmage. He's not as great in coverage. This is someone I would look at probably if we wind up moving on from CJ Mosley. He's fast in pursuit of the ball carrier from sideline to sideline. This guy is quick and he hits the piss out of people. I really like Trenton Simpson. I don't particularly want to go linebacker in the first round. There's no linebacker that necessarily jumps out to me the same way I had with a Nakobe Dean or some of the guys that we saw last year. So I'll have to do a little bit more analysis. This guy being the top dog, I am curious to see where he ultimately ends up after the testing phase. And then my last player I want to take a look at, the Jets have a very strong defensive line, but you could always add to it, and the Jets could be losing Sheldon Rankins. So Mazi Smith, the defensive tackle out of Michigan, is someone that I would like the Jets to consider maybe in the second round or in a trade down situation. He's 21, almost 22 years old, 6'3", 337 pounds. He does have a second round grade, 2-time academic All Big Ten, 2-time All Big Ten, and he is a run-stuffing defensive tackle with some upside as a pass rusher. So if you're asking me if I would rather pay a Sheldon Rankins somewhere in the neighborhood of $8 to $10 million, or if I'd rather get this guy for $2 or $3 million or whatever it is a year on a 4-year contract, it's going to be this guy. There's going to be a lot of discussion, I think, among Jet fans as to what the best route is moving forward with the defensive line. Getting fresh legs in there is so important, but also paying the defensive line. We're going to have to pay Quinnen Williams a ton of money, and there's questions as far as how much money you want to allocate based on the percentage of snaps that those players play. In a hard cap sport like the NFL, you have to make some critical decisions as far as resource management. So defensive tackle, if you're looking for one and one to plug up a bunch of holes, this kid is the one to do it. He is very, very tough to move off the line of scrimmage. So guys, those are my top 10 picks as far as players to watch at this week's NFL draft. I'm going to be doing breakdowns of each day as we head through this whole little process here. we have the schedule coming up. We have Thursday is going to be the defensive linemen and the linebackers. Friday, we have the defensive backs. Saturday's going to be quarterbacks, wide receivers, tight ends. And then Sunday rounds us out with the running backs, offensive line, and I believe special teams is that day as well. So guys, let me know who you are keeping an eye on at the Combine this week. Is there a particular player you think I should keep my eye on for the New York Jets? Let me know in the comment section down below. And as always, go Jets.
J-E-T-S,